Oh, sorry about that, y'all. That's me. That's me, Harry. I made a boo-boo this morning. Oh, welcome to Lovebabz, Lovetalk. I'm Babz Rawls Ivy, and it's around 9 o'clock, so you know it's time for me to talk. I'm not spinning any music today. I am having a good conversation, or about to have a good conversation, with Dr. Herron K. Gaston.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
So Constance Royster introduced me to him. We were at some arts and ideas thing around spoken word and artists and hip hop and the life of artists. And so Constance introduced me to him and said, "Oh, he is someone you have to meet." So we caught up, had coffee at Fussy Coffee, and chatted. And I think we're fast friends now.
Oh, absolutely.
And wait. So I was thinking about you this morning. I was driving in. I was like, "You're cut from that Paul Robeson cloth."
Is that right?
I think so. Renaissance.
Okay. Yeah.
You're like 50 million. Like, you're very young, and you've done a gazillion things.
That's what they say.
You're a minister.
Mm-hmm.
You graduated from the divinity school.
Yep.
You're at the daggone Quinnipiac Law School.
Yes.
And there's a whole bunch of other things that I'm missing out on. How are you?
I'm doing well.
And you're from Florida.
From Florida.
And he's been here 10 years, y'all. And I had not known of him till Connie introduced us. You know, she's going to listen in. I'm going to send her this after the fact. I didn't want to wake her this morning, but I know she's probably up. So how are you?
I'm doing well.
So tell me about yourself. Now, you have a book out.
Yes.
Which I can't get my hands on.
Where it's on Amazon. Actually, they sold over 22,000 copies since the book was released. I have two books out. One is entitled Practically Reversing the Trends of Mass Incarceration. And that book works with local organizations, faith-based organizations, and helping people who have been formerly incarcerated reintegrate back into society and plugging them into social programs so they could be productive members of society. The other book is entitled The Darkest Night in Incarceration Memoir, From Jail to Yale. And that book basically gives a detailed account about my own incarceral experience and why I'm so passionate about criminal justice reform in our inner cities particularly.
And I mean, you're right there stomping in these streets around this matter.
Oh, you know I'm trying to.
And I think young people can relate to you because you're young.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not some old fuddy-duddy talking to them about, well, when I did, you know. No, I mean, you are recognizable in that cohort where black men are locked up at rapid numbers.
Right.
You know. And so do you want to tell a little bit of your story and why you wrote these books?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
So, you know, all too often I have experienced the ease with which, you know, young black men who look like me fall under the crushing yoke of injustice by an inherently systematically prejudicial criminal justice system. And, you know, 1 in 3 African-American males will be institutionalized at some point in time in their life before they're 35 years old. And so if you were to put, you know, 3 black men in a room together, at least one of them, regardless of their educational background, their socioeconomic status, will have encountered the criminal justice system. And so that was me. I mean, I was a student who done impeccably well academically. I went to Florida A&M University.
Rattlers.
Yeah, Rattlers. You know, Rattlers run the world. So, you know, I went to Florida A&M, graduated with a bachelor's in political science, pre-law studies. And during that time, I also worked in the governor's office in Florida. And I also worked on the Council of the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, helping to address the school to prison pipeline for African American Latino males in the state of Florida. And through my work, over 65% of the students who were going into the criminal justice system from school, we ended up putting a halt to that. And so those numbers were down to about 10% under the administration of Governor Charlie Crist. And I played a big role in that. So I kind of got my calling to seminary and divinity school after having completed my master's degree in public administration and political science from Florida A&M and working in the Florida Department of Corrections as a legislative analyst. It was when I was meeting with men who were coming out of prison, and they said to me, have you ever thought about, you know, being a pastor or working for a faith-based organization? Because it seemed to me that you have that pastoral edge.
And you come from a line of pastors.
Yeah.
So it's in your DNA.
It's in my DNA to do that. And so I think that faith and the work that I'm called to do, you know, allows me to be effective in that work in terms of having humanitarian compassion for my fellow brothers and sisters. And so that led me to divinity school. And when I got to divinity school, that's when it seemed like, when I answered the call and said finally yes to God, that my life turned topsy-turvy. And in the fall of 2010, I began to matriculate at Yale Divinity School. And halfway through the semester, I had received a call from the University of South Florida saying, you know, Mr. Gaston, we're calling you to let you know that you have been accused of sexual misconduct, and we just want to have a conversation with you about it. And so I said, well, I'm not sure what's going on. Just before coming to divinity school that summer, just for summer work, I worked for a program called Upward Bound, which is a college reach out program.
Yep, I know it well.
Yeah, and I was formerly Mr. Upward Bound for the state of Florida, and also was the president for Trio Scholars Association. And so I was totally caught off guard. My character was attempted to be maligned, and so, you know, I stood up for myself and said I categorically deny those allegations and asked that you would speak further with an attorney. And so my attorney got involved, the police department got in contact with them, and they said, well, there's nothing for Mr. Gaston to worry about. We were just basically following up on an allegation, and so he should continue to go to class as normal. And so that's what I did. And but there was something in my spirit that said that, you know, you need to alert an administrator at the school to let them know at least what's going on, just in case this goes further. And so that's what I did. I had a conversation with the then Associate Dean of Student Affairs at Yale Divinity School, and I mentioned to them about the call that I received. And so we tried to research and also call the police department and figure out what was happening. From what I understand, the police department said there's nothing for Mr. Gaston to worry about. He should return to class as normal. And so that's what I did. And on November 4th, 2010, the United States Marshals came into the Divinity School and subsequently arrested me on campus. And so that was a very tumultuous experience for me, life-altering and life-changing. But nonetheless, it has given me fire in my belly to fight for individuals who have been wrongfully accused, or those individuals whose backs are against the wall, whether or not they committed a crime or not. I think that we ought to be experiencing and showing people humanitarian compassion. I mean, we look at our biblical text, we see that it's replete with individuals who have gone through an incarceral experience. The Apostle Paul, you know, we look at David, we look at Saul and these other biblical characters like Moses.
Come on,
who've
somebody.
had those kind of experiences. And so that means that
You're
we
about to
are
bring
not...
us the word, aren't you? I feel it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so that didn't daunt you.
No.
It didn't break your spirit.
No.
It probably strengthened you on some level.
Absolutely.
To press on and to, I don't know if prove your innocence is the right way to say that, but to at least get the truth out there.
Right.
And so you can move forward.
Well, I mean, that's also a very difficult journey as well in trying to, you know, adjudicate a situation in the court of public opinion, because once there's an allegation that's out there on you, you know, there are people who choose to believe that, and there are people who will stand alongside you and say, hey, I know that these things happen every day in our system and in our community. And so we're going to help you to pick up the pieces and to demonstrate to the world that you didn't do it, but more importantly, that you're going to use this experience that was meant to be a cave experience to help illuminate the issues that impact communities of color.
Okay. All right. right, so you get through this,
Yes.
and Yale welcomes you back.
So that was a journey as well. You know, I've been extremely grateful
Because
having
they're
been a
not very
graduate.
welcoming about stuff. So,
Well, you know, I think that none of us have gotten to where we are solely about what we've done, but somebody had to bend down, pick us up, create an opportunity, and create a door. And sometimes you knock on that door, and sometimes you have to use a little bit more force to knock the door open. And so I chose to do the latter, and that means fighting to say, hey, listen, I felt called here in 2010. I feel called here when the case was adjudicated in court, and I'm coming back. And so, you know, initially it was a drag, but eventually with much advocacy and persistence and my tenacious spirit, and also being able to appeal to the heartstrings of those at Yale, I was able to come back to the school and have been very happy about being back.
So where did you get your PhD?
So my doctorate degree actually is from the Andover Newton Seminary. That's at Yale Divinity School now.
Yes.
And so that degree focuses on pastoral counseling, theology, and counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kicked the door in so much so that they hire you. They're like, we want him on our team.
Well, I was an active student on campus, and I had also worked in the Office of Admissions in 2012 once I returned back to campus, and have been working in the Office of Admissions since then. And so there was something that they saw in me in terms of being able to be an ambassador for the institution. And
I would say
I was
so.
hired. Yeah.
So working in admissions, what do you get to do?
So I get to travel. I get to meet people like you every single day and talk about the lovely thing that's happening in seminary, that's happening at the Yale Divinity School, and helping to recruit students who otherwise may not have had an opportunity to attend a place like Yale, and to see that that is something that is not beyond their reach, and that it is in their scope to attend. Because if I could go there and graduate, that means I believe that other folks could also go there and graduate as well. And so I think that my role there, my calling there, is to help open the door and create opportunity and access to those who otherwise might not have an opportunity.
Are people enrolling in divinity schools around the world? Like, are people still seeking that sort of life?
Yes, absolutely. I think that divinity school and seminaries are not monolithic, that there are so many different things that people could do with the degree. And it touch upon so many aspects of life.
Meaning you don't have to go.
So you don't have to go and become a pastor
church.
or a manager church.
Okay, because I don't want to manage a church.
Well, you can run a nonprofit organization. You could, be into the music industry, or you could be into newspaper print and doing the things that you're doing. So I see some intersectionality there and some synergy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you seeing? So what do the people look like that come through divinity school?
Well,
because I have a vision in my head, but lately, the last few years, I've seen a lot of people of color.
Yes, absolutely. I think that well, at least over the past couple of years at the Divinity School, we have increased enrollment around underrepresented students, and it is unprecedented. The Divinity School have not had this level of diversity and inclusivity since its inception. And so that goes to the leadership of the institution, but also the men and women who are working every single day to create opportunity and access to say that Yale Divinity School is open to all people, regardless of your socioeconomic background, where you come from, and what you look like. That ministry is needed in our world, in our community, and those folks are certainly needed to put their indelible imprint on society, because our world is hurting. Is starving for leadership, and if we look at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, we don't have to look far to see that we need.
It's like a trailer park now.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a train wreck.
Oh my Lord! So you pastor a church?
Yes.
And so this church found you, and you said yes to them.
Yes.
So what is that like?
I love being in the pulpit.
Do you? I could tell.
Yes, I love it, and I love the people, and I like to serve. Not only am I called to my church, but I'm called to the community to serve others. And I think that service is the rent that we pay for the space that we occupy, and it's all about helping other people along the way become the best version of themselves. And so in Bridgeport, there's a huge need for voices, and I've been a consistent voice since arriving in Bridgeport about 5 years ago, working to help reduce recidivism in the city, helping individuals who are coming home from prison, helping to find them jobs, and also working with them on a lot of issues that bar them from moving forward with their lives.
And this is just this is you in the capacity of the church?
This is me in the capacity of the church.
That's novel.
Yeah, well, we also run a youth program where we send over 90% of our students into colleges and universities across the state of Connecticut. We've been recognized by the then Governor Daniel P. Malloy. We've been recognized by the city of Stratford, the city of Bridgeport, the city of Waterbury, also the city of New Haven for the work that we're doing across our state and helping young people be the best.
So what makes your program work? Because everybody's having this conversation about how to interrupt the prison pipeline, and everybody's got an idea or a vision or a scope of work that they think could interrupt the pipeline, and I'm all for all of it because I think it all belongs. So tell me a little bit about what makes your program successful.
Right. Well, I think that with the programs, there's not a one size fit all, but I think that it's really engaging your community, understanding the politics and the nuances of your community and the needs of your community, and ways in which you could help to assist with that. So in Bridgeport, I look at education. I always start with education because I think that education is the bridge to the future, is the cornerstone by which our success so heavily depends upon. And it's one opportunity and vehicle through which we could help to burst through the poverty issue. And so I focus on education. So we do tutoring at the church, helping students be successful in high school, helping them, with ACT and SAT preparation that will give them good footing. We also work with individual families. So we don't just engage with the students, we also engage with the families as well. And so I also use social workers and other pastors and counselors within the community to mentor at least one student. And when they're mentoring these students, they're focusing on resume building. They're focusing on conflict resolution, the ways in which, Black and brown students should engage and interact with the police. We bring the police in as well to say this is the way in which you ought to interact with our community, and being sensitive to the cultural concerns and the cultural needs of this community. And then we also help them with jobs. And so our students are being put to work in the summer so that they're staying out of trouble and from the street. And then we take them around to colleges and universities and give them a tour. And I think because of my expertise working in admissions, I know what a successful college application looks like and what students ought to put in their application to be successful in terms of matriculating at a college or university.
So this is your life work?
Yes. It's
Really?
my life calling.
You feel that?
I feel it
Okay,
in my bones.
So tell me about law school then.
Oh, I love law school.
You're a student of the world, so I would imagine you would love law school.
Yes, yes.
Because you get to argue and talk and.
Oh yeah, and all the above. But really, what drove me to law school? I've always had a knack for wanting to do law school. In fact, before I accumulated 4 or 5 different degrees outside of my bachelor's degree, I thought about going to law school, and it just hadn't quite happened yet. And so I think that we're called to different things at different times of our lives.
Yeah.
And I think that but for my experience that I had with the criminal justice system, I probably would have not done law school. I probably done more so public policy and ran for public office, which is still sort of something I'm thinking about. But the law school component allows me to really dig deeply into the systemic issues plaguing our community, and especially around mass incarceration and folks who are being institutionalized. The problem is many of our folks, Black and brown, cannot afford an attorney to go into the courtroom to argue their cause. And so they go to a public defender. And for those who do public defending work, it's awesome. It's great. I think it's an honorable career.
But they're overwhelmed.
But they're overwhelmed, and they can't spend the kind of time needed to really effectively argue the cases that will be winnable.
So you want to be one of those kind of attorneys?
Well, I want to be a private attorney.
Okay. So how are you going to eat?
Well, I mean,
you look like you're doing all right.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. In fact, being a pastor, I've gained over 30 pounds.
Worried, but I want your mama to be worried about, like, what are you eating, boy?
Well, I think that when you do something that you love, I think that the money and the resources will come. I'm not necessarily worried about that. I'm worried about helping somebody else along the way to be the best that they could be and to live their life with purpose and with meaning.
You're going to take the bar in Connecticut? Will you take it in Florida?
The state of Connecticut.
Really?
Yeah. State of
Florida too, or no?
Well, I love Florida, but I think that Florida is overly saturated with attorneys. I
Really?
think that the state of Connecticut could use my voice. And so I see this as home. And so Connecticut is where I plan on staying.
And when do you graduate?
In the next 2 years.
Oh my gosh, that's going to quickly.
Yeah.
So how are you managing a church, a job, and academic success at law school?
Yes, well, I've always been a person that's been able to do a lot of different things and try to do those things well. And
You're
so
not married, are you?
Not married.
Yeah, okay. No kids, right?
No kids.
Oh, see, that's how
not
you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you'll fit that in, I'm sure. Is there any other degrees you want?
No, just the law degree.
Just the law degree.
Yeah, just the law degree.
And so not a medical degree, nothing?
Oh, no. I'll leave that alone. Probably when I'm around about 45, 50, I'll probably think about maybe doing something else. But I feel uniquely called to what I'm doing now, and this is enough for now. More than enough.
Listen, that's you've done 3 lifetimes. That's 3-4 lifetimes that you have done already, and you're very young.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're very clear about your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And you will stay rooted to it until it directs you in another way?
I will. I'll stay rooted to it. I will say that, I think that politics is the process by which we choose our elected officials and hold them accountable to the constituents that they represent.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like to see more of is not politicians, but statesmen. That really care very deeply about the issues within their community.
Sounds very Frederick Douglass.
Oh yeah. Well, I am considering a public office at some point, and merging that with
the highest office in the
ministry.
land, or
we'll cross that
before
bridge
you get to it
when we get there.
Okay.
But there's certainly, I leave all possibilities on the table.
Okay. All right. So are people in your circle aware of these aspirations?
Well, I've written about it in the Huffington Post, and so I think it's all around the world at this point. I've talked about it quite a bit across the state, and I've talked about it quite a bit at the Divinity School. And when I pledged my fraternity, my nickname was Governor, and that's my line name. So we'll see what that means, whether or not that vision will come to bear.
And you are a member of
the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
The men of black and gold.
Black and old gold.
Oh, I'm sorry, black and old. My very best friend on the planet is an Alpha.
Is that right?
And he lives here in New Haven.
He must be an extraordinary individual.
He is incomparable.
Oh yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. I should connect y'all some kind of way. I think you would enjoy him. He went to Virginia State.
Okay. And
then he was an Urban Fellow in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me into the Urban Fellows program.
Wow. See, alpha men are always trying to create a door.
I know. I think you would appreciate that. He does all the time. So, all right. So, what do you do for fun? What are you doing for fun?
Yeah, so for fun.
Because I know you just came back from vacation in Florida.
Yeah, I was on vacation. But that was home. That was home.
Seeing family. So I don't know how much fun you can have when you're running to see everybody you need to see.
Well, that's true. That's true too. But
because everybody wants to see you.
Yeah, but I do have fun. I do a lot of things for fun. I mean, I love going to the movies. I like kayaking. I like riding ATVs, and so sometimes I go to Puerto Rico and do some of those things, zip lining. So I'm a person that also enjoy to have adventure.
You're an adventure junkie?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tell. I can tell. I'll cheer you on from the ground. Hey, go, Herron. So give me some observations about what you see is going on in the world. Do you feel like people are losing hope? I mean, this administration is wearing people thin, but I believe people are rising up and fighting back. Every day I'm starting to see more and more pushback on this administration and the ways in which they not do business and not handle the people's business, and the language and the spirit in which things are said and done. I think if normal people would do these things in their everyday practical lives, they'd all be fired. So, what do you think these days?
Well, these days, it is difficult to find hope, even though I'm preaching hope every single Sunday to a population of people whose backs are against the wall and having to deal with the atrocities of what's happening in our society and the vitriolic rhetoric that we're hearing from the Oval Office, from our president. And it is something that's also seeping down and to other aspects of our daily lives. And so I think that what we are up against right now is a politics where individuals are being browbeaten and certain communities are being targeted and victimized. And so I think that when you have that kind of spirit in the Oval Office, I think that it is giving permission for racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and all of those different phobias to come to bear. And we see it also in the workplace. We're seeing it not just in the White House, but we're seeing it on our streets. And so I think what needs to happen is there needs to be an uprising of the people to say that, if folks elected you to public office, that we won't stand for that. I think that what we're seeing also right now is racial regress, because every time in our society, when we look and we see that there's been racial progress, there's always a backlash of that. So what we're experiencing right now is the backlash from President Barack Obama being in Oval Office for 8 years, that this president is trying to undo every single policy that Obama has done. And so I think there's a remnant of people that's out there that believes in what the president is saying. I mean, if you look at his rallies, they're packed with people. He's not, telling people that they need to come together, coalesce together around a vision, but that we need to be separated. And so this is the most divisive politics that I've seen in my lifetime. But I still have some hope, and that people will stand up for what it is that they believe in, that they will begin to take our country back and move us forward instead of us moving backwards.
I mean, that sounds like it's in the spirit of Dr. Barber, who is my spiritual crush.
Yeah.
Like, he really is my spiritual crush. And he was here last fall speaking at Patel for I think it was MLK weekend, and he was so I just love the energy and the way in which he speaks about people coming together and doing just what you said, coalescing. I don't think we've heard that in such a long time that it almost feels foreign to people. But I see people rallying and doing all that they can to sort of push back on some of this stuff.
But also, I think that, America is not a melting pot, but it's a salad bowl. And each of us have our own special ingredients by which we are able to contribute to that salad. And I think that what we are dealing with right now is that our country is becoming more black and brown than ever before. And I think that what we're experiencing is the white lashing back, and that, out of fear of losing power, that we have to use rhetoric that will cause fear to divide people. But I think that people are much more smarter than that. And I think that people could read between the lines. And I think that what we need to do as a country is to try to come together and to look out for each other. I think that's what we're called to do.
I hope so. Although I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I remain hopeful.
Yes.
Because I know that there are people on the ground that are doing all that they can to sort of see America become its greatest vision of itself. But it's a long haul.
It is. Nothing comes easy. Nothing comes without a struggle. And so we have to continue to struggle together. We have to continue to protest. We have to continue to call out bigotry and hatred, whether you see it on your job, whether you see it in the community, whether you see it in the police departments. I think that we need more people speaking out against these things and holding people accountable for their actions.
What do you think the church's role is these days?
Yeah, the church, in some ways, I think prophetic voice have been dampened. And
I think so too.
Yeah, and perhaps because many of the ministers probably also receiving some kind of federal assistance or grants, and so their 501c3 status oftentimes is on the line when they get out and speak up too much. So I think there are some restrictions around that as well. But I also think that we need more prophets in the pulpit. We've been hearing more of the prosperity gospel, that you put $5 in, you're going to get $5,000 back. And that seems like that's something that people kind of want to hear. But I think that what people really need to hear is what's happening in their community, how they can help to change the plight of their community, the injustices that we see, and fighting against spiritual wickedness in high places, and giving people agency and voice to articulate what their concerns are, and to begin holding people who are responsible for our everyday lives in society, holding those people accountable and saying, hey, we will not, stand up for resources going into, suburban communities and not coming to the urban communities in the ways that they should be coming to help those people who are most desperate for assistance and help. And so we're not asking for a handout, but we're asking for a hand up. And I think there needs to be more ministers coming together, meeting with our politicians, meeting with our governors and other leaders within the community and saying, we speak on behalf of the people in our congregations, because on a Sunday morning, I'm the mayor on the east end of Bridgeport. And if I tell my people that this is what's happening and this is the direction that we're going in, then, that's the direction that we're going to be going in. I think that pastors have to, rekindle that fire within their own congregations and their communities, but also not working so independently that your church is just your church. But when we talk about the church, we're talking about the universal church.
Well, I mean, I love that. But I also, I've seen churches be on the wrong side of things over and over and over again. And their congregations feel very strongly about whatever, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's abortion, whether it's, the prosperity messages that people seem to be flocking to.
Right.
They feel like that's the way to go.
Well, there are, and I think that we have to also hold those church communities accountable as well, that we're preaching the gospel of love, and we're not preaching hatred, bigotry, and all of those different isms that we see in the biblical text. I happen to have a much more progressive exegetical imagination around those kinds of issues. And even though I'm pastoring a church that is somewhat theologically conservative, having a pastor that's there to help to open up their eyes to see that we ought to treat everybody with love and compassion, because I think that's what Christ did.
Do you feel like do you get the pushback?
Initially,
like, do they say you're going too far now?
No, I had one or two maybe say that, but then
like, no, we're not welcoming homeless people into the church on Sunday. No, we're not gonna have out gay people sitting with us.
Well, no, I haven't had that as an experience at my church, and I mean that's something that I'm very clear about. Is that the church, I think, is the church is not a museum just for the saints. The church is an open door for anyone who wants to come and experience the radical hospitality and the radical love of Jesus Christ. And so if you are a member of my congregation, that is something that I infuse into the ethos of the church. And many of the people there respect the fact that they have a pastor that is open to difference, and a pastor who's also open to have the conversation, the tough and difficult conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so they respect that and hear it from you because you're, as I said, young.
Yeah. Well, I personally think that when you demonstrate a level of respect to people, people will give you that same level of respect. And when it comes to age and all of those different things, I mean, I've had some experience, so I think that having that experience allows me to be coachable in some ways.
Okay. So, and what is your denomination?
So I originally grew up in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the AME Church in Florida.
Mother AME.
Yep,
Yes.
Yep. And so it's a kissing cousin to the United Methodist Church, and so I didn't go too far, and it was an amicable divorce. But I'm now in the Methodist Church.
UCC.
I love the UCC Church as well.
Hey, come on, UCC. We welcome everybody. We're just one step above Unitarian.
That is true.
All right, so how long have you been pastoring this church?
So 5 years, going into my 6-year appointment.
Really? I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, now where's the church?
So it is in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It's located at 110 Claremont Avenue. We're on the east side of Bridgeport.
Do you know Mount Airy?
Oh, I do. I know the pastor there is a great alpha man, one of my mentors.
And his wife is a Delta?
Oh, yes. Oh, Deltas run the world.
We do.
That's true.
We do.
I have to give homage to that.
Homage taken.
Yep.
Yes, I've been there a couple of times. I have some good friends who are in and out of there speaking and doing all kinds of things. And
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, yes. So it's a wonderful church. I don't know where your church is in. I don't know the geography of Bridgeport, but they seem to be very, very grounded in that community. So
yes, very much so grounded in that community. That church probably is about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes away from my church. So we're on different sides of the city, but nonetheless, really doing effective ministry there and helping to change the plight of Bridgeport.
Okay, all right. So So you're doing administration. You're doing admissions work at the Divinity School,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lovely place. I love the Marquand
Chapel.
Chapel. I just love the space, and I love when they trick it out so that it can be any sort of way
Right.
for any sort of service.
Mhm.
And I've gone a few times to different things, and I used to go when the brother who used to come and do the music.
Oh yes, Mark Miller.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does he still come?
He still comes.
Really?
He still comes.
Oh, I enjoy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
enjoy.
He's a
It's like
treat.
Black Church,
Mhm.
right? I enjoy that so much. So yeah, so you're doing that. You're at the law school at Quinnipiac Law School, and you want to hang your shingle out as soon as you graduate. on top of pastoring a church
Well, we'll see. I
and
think.
writing for the Huff Post. I don't know how you do.
Oh
all that.
yeah. I was writing for the Huffington Post, and I also contribute sometimes to the USA Today, and contribute to News 12. I've been on the Miss Edwards show for News 12 as well. So I try to do a little bit of writing as well. It's quite therapeutic.
Oh, I believe you. You can write for the inner city too if you have the moment, if you have time.
Listen, would love to.
In between.
In between sleep.
In between all these things. So what are you reading these days? Because I know you have to be an avid reader.
Yes, so I've been reading quite a bit lately. In fact, I love reading Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow and the Age of Color Blindness. I've read that book at least twice.
Really?
I think that she has her finger really on the pulse. I've also had an opportunity to read Black Robes, White Justice by
Yes.
an attorney who was a former judge that talks about his experience being a judge and the people that have come before him and sort of the issues that he see within the criminal justice system. So it kind of gives me
any thoughts
lens.
of being a judge?
So that's something I thought about, but if somebody would appoint me to that or say that they think I'll be great for it, certainly I'll candidate. Yes, I've been reading those, and I like to read also James Cone's work, Black Liberation Theology, Black Power. Kind of gives us really a good introspection into the African American church and how the church, historically have been really a balm in Gilead for so many people in our communities, and how the leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, and others use their faith experience to help change the plight of humanity.
Is it still true? Is the Black church still important to us?
I think the Black church still is important. In terms of looking at the Black church, I mean, it's not monolithic. It's never been monolithic, but the Black church really is a safe place for a lot of people. It's a refuge. It's a place of hope. It truly is the city on a hill. It's one place where, I can speak the unadulterated truth without necessarily feeling like I'm going to be sanctioned by anybody. It's a place where people can come together and really speak their minds in a way that is not politically sanitized, but a way that they are speaking from their heart. And so I do think the church is still a place that gives people and help people envision their lives and to see hope and to give them agency and voice.
I think you're right. I think there's still a real need for the Black church.
Yes.
And the same way that I believe there's still a need for historically Black colleges and universities.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love that people are starting to recognize that we need to preserve these institutions of higher learning.
Sure.
Because they're always under siege. And I think if we put the spotlight on these institutions, that they can't be messed with in a way that if we're not paying attention to them. I think Bennett was a good example of rallying back from what they were underneath.
Right.
And all these other schools.
Well, I recall probably in about, I think it was 2014 to 2015, Governor Nikki Haley in South Carolina was attempting to close down South Carolina State University, which is a historically Black college. Myself and one of my colleagues, Rondrea Mathis, who's now a professor at the Bethune-Cookman University, wrote a letter and said that we demand that the legislature fund South Carolina State University, that it be a death knell to the community if they close the school. And we were able to put so much pressure on the South Carolina legislature and the governor that they rescinded the offer of closing down South Carolina State University. So we do need champions, and we need people who really understand what it means to truly go through a historically Black college, because I wouldn't be who I am today without Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
Say it. My sister went there from Spelman.
Oh yeah, we sit on the highest hills of 7 hills in Tallahassee.
I know it well. I know it
Mhm.
well. And I'm a graduate of a historically black college myself, so I understand the value. And I think for our children, it is necessary.
Mhm.
And I was trying to explain to, not trying, but explaining to people, when you go to historically black colleges, it's not just the black student union or the white student union. It's just the student union.
It's student union.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's just the basketball team. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
whatever it is. It's not any other thing in front of it or behind
Mhm.
it. It just is. And I think that really does a lot for your spirit to sort of not have to divide yourself
Oh yeah, it
in
does.
these spaces.
Mhm.
Because I think you have to do that when you're at other places. You have to find your people, your tribe,
Yes. Mhm.
and be other in other spaces.
Mhm. Yeah, well, going to an HBCU, I had professors that would say to me, "You are a royal black man. You can be anything that you want to be if you put your mind to it. That there's no barrier that's there that will stand in the way of you moving forward. And if you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. If you want to be a judge, you can be a judge." And I saw all of those manifestations in the classroom, and so that gave me hope and it allowed me to be resilient.
I think you're right. I don't think, and all of us who have gone through HBCUs have heard exactly that.
Mhm.
You have to be the best, the brightest. You can do it.
Yes.
Put your mind to it. You come from people who have overcome
Mhm.
and persevered.
Yes.
And, celebrated and loved. And, don't let people tell you that we don't love each other. I mean, it was just,
Oh yes.
it was just a constant prayed up kind of thing.
And also, I would like to say that I think that in terms of the rigor of the academic experience at HBCUs, contrary to what folks will say in society or have you to believe, we had a very rigorous
I will put my little
educational
Barbara
experience.
Scotia marketing,
Mhm.
business administration marketing degree up against anybody.
Anybody.
I can do quantitative analysis
telling
too,
you.
baby. So let me tell you something. Dr. Piles taught me well. So
Absolutely.
So yeah, those kinds of things, I think those are very, very needed. So before I let you go, I want to get your take on things that are going on in our community.
Mhm.
Harmony between black men and women.
Mhm.
Is it as dire as it is played out in people's intellectual papers? People are fascinated by the dynamics of black love.
Mhm.
That black women are not going to get husbands because they're all locked up. Black men are going to just chase white women.
Mhm.
You've heard this.
Oh, I've heard
stuff.
that. I've heard that narrative. And I, disagree with that narrative, because when I walk out into society and I look around, certainly we can't overlook the fact that our criminal justice system needs changing, and that, overwhelmingly our black and brown men are there. But we also have so many black and brown men who are graduating from colleges and universities every single day. They're graduating from Yale, they're graduating from Harvard and Princeton and Morehouse and Florida A&M and Howard. And so we have a plethora of black men and black women that's out there, and they're loving on each other and they're getting to know each other. But I think that society is trying to infiltrate their ideologies onto our communities to say that we're so messed up, we're so jacked up that we can't even really see each other. I think that what we have to do is pull back the layers and the veil and say, hey, listen, there are great black men and women that's out there, and black love still do exist. My parents have been married for over 37 years, and that's one great example of black love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently dating a black woman. And so at least from my own personal experience, black love still do exist. Yeah.
I think that should be your next book.
Oh yeah.
I think
where's black love?
Yeah, black love still exists,
Yeah,
and I'm
it
here
does.
to tell you.
And I'm here to tell you.
But you hear it though, right? I mean,
I do hear it.
You hear it. I hear it, and I'm way older than you are, and I hear it, and I talk about this in my circle of friends all the time, because I have daughters who are coming up who are about to become age where they start thinking about serious relationships, and I'm concerned about the prospects for them, if that's what they want to do, right? Like I'm not pushing marriage to anybody. I'm just saying, for those that want it though, the prospects seem to be a little challenging. At least we hear that.
Well, something that I kind of notice, I mean, I think that, especially when you think about intelligentsia, or you think about black men and black women who are educated, I think that for that subgroup, at least they're sort of missing each other.
Okay.
And perhaps that's because they're such visionaries and they're so independent in terms of chasing their dreams that people are waiting until later to get seriously involved in a relationship. But I know this for my own self, that the older that you get, the more set in your ways you kind of become. So you become nagging about, oh, don't move my toothbrush, or, don't move this or don't move that. So I think it's working through that sort of independence. And it's not saying that one person needs to dominate the relationship over the other person. I think there ought to be equity in a relationship. But it's about getting to know the person.
Yeah.
And and really liking and enjoying that person. And I think that love and all of those things will follow.
Are you a TV watcher?
Every now and then I watch TV.
Okay,
TV watches me.
What do you watch? What do you like? Have you watched Queen Sugar?
No, I haven't watched Queen Sugar.
I think you would enjoy that.
So I just recently was watching something on YouTube that's been out a while ago. It's When They See Us. It's that new
Ava DuVernay's documentary.
Yes, I've been looking at that documentary.
I can't do
a couple of times. And while I was in New York, I actually saw Corey Wise walking in Harlem on 125th Street, and I tried to go up to him and say, oh, can I get a photo with you? And he's like, oh, I'm good. I believe he probably had about 30, 40 people just before I came to him, probably trying to get a photo. But yeah, I've been watching that. It's been quite fascinating to see that. So a lot of stuff that I watch definitely have something educational about it and always harken back to something around incarceration. So I like Law and Order.
Last movie?
Yeah. So the last movie that I watched, I can't even recall.
When the last time you been to the movies?
So I went to go see Spider-Man. Whenever that came out.
That's all
whenever
right.
that came out, yeah.
I just saw Toni Morrison's The Pieces That I Am.
Oh yeah.
It was downtown at Bowtie, and it was fascinating to sort of watch her evolution. So I thought that was really, really good. And I think before that, I can't remember what I saw, but I go to the movies fairly often. And I know I saw a Jamaican film.
Oh yeah.
The Pusher, I think that's what it was called. The Runner.
The Runner.
This is The Runner.
Okay.
And it was quite engaging. It was really, really such a good film. So
I'm Caribbean. I'm not Jamaican. I'm St. Lucian.
Oh, I forgot that aspect.
Yeah, I'm a St. Lucian.
Oh my Lord!
Yeah.
So when last time you been back to St. Lucia?
So last year,
really?
I actually
for
visited.
Carnival.
Listen. Don't be trying to call me out like that. You know what I'm saying? My parishioners might be actually listening. But yeah, I do plan on going back for Christmas this year.
Really?
Yes.
That might be a good thing to do. It's beautiful there.
Oh, yeah.
I've not been there in 30 years.
Wow. I have to take you back.
Yeah, it's been a long time. When I was in college, I hit all those little islands because I had a lot of friends who were Caribbean, and so I just island hopped like all through the Caribbean. I was like, man, who would leave this?
Saying.
But now you grow up and you realize, okay, I understand. I understand. You gotta, economic development is a real thing, and having access to capital and stuff is a real thing. So, no, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I did not know that you had that heritage.
Yes.
Okay. It's been a pleasure talking
to you. It's been a pleasure talking to you as well.
Really?
We can do this all day.
Yes, you have to come back. You definitely have to come back.
Oh, definitely.
So we can talk more and keep me updated on law school.
Okay. Yes.
And when we can come visit the church.
Also, I'll be doing a TED Talk at Georgetown University on October 26th. So I'll be talking about my book and my experience. But also just giving people some hope soon. So yeah.
So you're gonna be in full pastoral mode?
I'm not gonna be in pastoral mode.
No.
No, I'm about to be Herron Gaston.
Oh. I don't. Is we ready for that?
I don't know if they're ready, but they
might be ready.
Yeah, they might be ready.
All right. So what time is church on Sundays?
So church on Sundays start at 10 a.m.
And how long? Because black churches.
No, I don't believe it have to be eternal to be everlasting.
I'm not trying to get out of there too.
I know what you mean.
What time?
But I believe it don't have to be eternal to be everlasting. We get out of around by 11:45. You're out of there. Then we down at coffee hour.
It's not quite UCC time.
1 hour 45 minutes.
All right, I'm gonna go with that.
Okay.
I could. It's not quite UCC.
Oh, y'all in there for 1 hour. Y'all out. 45 minutes.
45 minutes, baby.
Okay.
And then 20 minutes for coffee hour. Boom, we out.
Boom. Okay.
All right. But no, I might come check you out.
Yeah, come check me out. I might get you out in that 45 minutes.
I've been looking for a good church.
Okay.
No, I haven't. But
No, you haven't.
But I'd like to go back to church. You got a good choir?
Oh yes, great choir.
All right. Then see that sells me. A good choir will sell me every time. So thank you, Dr. Herron K. Gaston. This has been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, Harry. I'm about to bounce out of here. I'll be back tomorrow. Tune in. I'll be spinning music tomorrow. Today was the talking part, and my guest today was the charming and dapper Dr. Herron K. Gaston. I'll see y'all. We'll